Hi folks, I'm Mark Ratcliffe. In this segment I'd like to look at professional learning and engagement. Specifically, I'd like to examine the kinds of evidence that a vet practitioner would need to provide to support a claim for currency. So when we talk currency, this is all about vocational currency, and there are two sides to the picture here. The first part is your area of expertise. This is what you train and assess in. The second part is all about training and assessment. Now this one's reasonably easy to prove because you might have a qualification. However, the area of expertise might be slightly harder to prove that you've got current competency here. For me, it's a lot like a professional athlete. An athlete needs to continue to train to stay at peak physical condition and therefore be competitive. I think the same is true of a vet practitioner. We have to continue to train and professionally develop ourselves so that we can work at our best too. So how do you demonstrate your participation in professional learning and engagement? Well, there are a variety of ways. You could do it through membership of trade or professional associations. Many of these associations have mandatory requirements for entry, such as things like a certain amount of time back in industry or a prescribed amount of continuing professional development. You might do it through participation in conferences or other workshops, and this time you can track your progress through things like e-portfolios or a logbook. You might have made contributions to trade or other training and assessment publications. This may have been in the form of articles or blog posts, or participation in an online community such as the ones we find on LinkedIn. In this particular example, you could take copies of your posts backwards and forwards, and this can provide proof of your professional dialogue. You may have created resources as they relate to training packages, so this shows current competency as it relates to those particular training products. You might have had subscription to relevant publications. In this particular case, what you could do is sign that you've actually read the stuff and provide a summary of some of the key things you'll put into practice as a result of what you've read. You might have participation in other structured in-house PD, and again you could use your logbook there to say this is what we did, this is who presented it, and this is the time frame that it was conducted in. And finally, you might have participation in other training and assessment activities with your organisation, such things as moderation meetings, industry engagement, or indeed assessment validation. Now, I spoke to some of my colleagues about how they track their professional development, and this is what they had to say.
The main ways I record my PD, professional development, is firstly, I always make sure that I try and keep my LinkedIn profile up to date because it keeps the important things there, the important things that I've done, and I keep a copy of a CV for whatever purposes I need to send it out for as well. I also keep folders at home, so if I get any certificates or statements or anything, I just stash them in the folder. And similarly, I've got this big old box at work as well, which I just dump things in constantly. Most of my PD, however, is actually tracked through my email. I have a series of folders within my Outlook, and I just duck things into those folders as I attend different types of PD, and as I watch certain things, look at things, I just dump them into those folders, so I've got a permanent record of them.
I track my professional development in two ways. Obviously, the formal way is through Mr. Wed itself and my staff records here, what we do. The other way I track it is actually I keep notes on my iPad in my note section that tracks the books that I read, the webinars and seminars I watch, and also my projected needs in terms of professional development.
For my PD activities, to record them, I have a log that I keep in a folder, and I just manually record them as I'm doing activities and put the date and what it was and who it was with, and I have a log of everything I've done.
I use two ways to track my personal professional development. The first is I use Outlook, so anything that comes in that is via email, I have a special file that I store all that information in for future reference. The second is I also have a file on my computer where I scan and keep any certificates or any evidence of professional development programs that I do. And I find this way it's quite easy for me to find these things whenever I need them.
There's some really interesting information there. I also posed this question to them specifically. What else have you seen out there that your students have done to track their professional development?
In my role as learning support team member at Mr. Wed, I see a lot of RPL applications, and it's interesting the variety of how people record their PD. Sometimes we get folders of dozens and dozens of certificates and statements presented to us, and it appears to me that that's how people are recording it, just by keeping this massive paperwork in electronic formats usually, and just sending that to us and just dumping a whole file to us. Sometimes we see spreadsheets and logbooks, which is a little bit more organised, and it's really helpful for some organisations where their workplaces track that for them. Many TAFEs are very good at like that, and organisations like Department of Defence are very good at tracking all of their staff members' PD, and then they can just send us those files and we can see what PD that they've attended. It's interesting the variety of, sometimes we tend to get a lot of files referencing other documents that we can't see, which sometimes makes things a little bit difficult. What I do really like too is e-portfolios. We've only had a few that I've spotted, but the idea of e-portfolio is really appealing for us from an RPL perspective, and I've seen some terrific work presented to us through e-portfolios.
In learning support, I find it a little interesting in the way others track their BD. Very often, unless their employer has a formal process, many people are struggling to answer the question, what PD have you done? And they're scrabbling or scrubbing through a whole lot of records kept in a box somewhere or at the back of a room. My feeling is most people don't log or track their PD very well at all.
Some of the ways that I have seen our RPL students logging their PD activities includes electronic intranet records used by the organisation that they work for. Some use an Excel spreadsheet where they have kept a record themselves, and I've also seen portfolios or logs that they've manually logged things into and they've kept a record in that way.
I've seen a number of ways that other people keep control of their professional development records. One of them is a lot of the industry bodies have a central point where you can actually store all that information and keep up to date. In fact, in the finance industry, you have to reach a certain amount of points to be able to meet your compliance of your professional development. Other than that, there's all sorts of different ways, by keeping files on computers, hard copy files, all sorts of different ways that people actually do these.
So, in conclusion, you have to be able to demonstrate that you've got that professional learning not only in what you're doing, but how you do it. Good luck on the journey.